You are listening to the Play to Win podcast, brought to you by Play to Win Advisory Australia.
Welcome to the Play to Win podcast series. Today, I'm very excited to have Stefan from PKF join the Play to Win community. I've known now Stefan for over 2 years through my journey of working with him in the capital markets sector. And today we're going to just talk about a whole lot of conversations about what PKF does, what does Stefan do. Welcome, Stefan. Very excited to have you on this podcast.
Thanks for having me on board, Farzad. Congrats on the podcast. It's always good to see when new podcasts come online and people take that jump to start a podcast. I think more people are listening to podcasts now than what they are reading articles, so well done.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks for giving your time. I'll get straight into it, Stefan. So I'm going to ask you about your early years and foundation. So I guess the first question is, how did you go from your early years to becoming a partner at a global firm like PKF?
So stepped into the world of insolvency, did that for a couple of years, then moved more into a valuation type role. Then met some of the partners at PKF who had just taken over the brand and they wanted to set up a corporate finance team. And I thought it's a great opportunity with my valuation skill set. I can develop some skills elsewhere in terms of that whole M&A life cycle, not just the valuation or the pricing piece. Yeah, so I've been at PKF for over 10 years now and been a partner for over 3.
Great. Can you give our audience a little bit of more detail on who is PKF and what does it mean for a role as a partner in that business, mainly in the Australian, New Zealand context as well?
No different to your big four and the other mid-tiers, our traditional accounting lines, and we've got a lot of our specialised accounting lines. Corporate finance is one of those. We focus on really advising mid-market or small to mid-market private firms as well as public firms, anything across the whole M&A lifecycle.
Kind of moving into the world of capital markets and company valuation, I guess what I wanted to ask you is, from where you sit, what are the most significant trends you're seeing in the market where companies are seeking help?
I think the biggest gap is still that price expectation, that valuation gap, whether it's the valuation gap as to what a client or a vendor think that they're worth compared to what the market would typically price them at. I think the key thing is what is the objective? Is it a liquidity event, an exit, or is it we need capital to grow? Over the last 10 years, the Australian market has developed in a way where you don't have to go to the public markets, to the boards to raise capital. Now there's some great private credit funds out there who are supporting the growth of companies too.
For founders and CEOs, what do you see as the common pitfalls or blind spots that they miss when they're starting to look for scaling their operations and then coming to you where you have to give them the reality check?
I think outside of that valuation education piece that I spoke about, it's really, do I have the right corporate structure set up to facilitate whatever the growth objective is or the exit strategy is? So do I have the right accountant and tax advisor that set me up in the most appropriate corporate structure that I can go out there, raise capital, make some acquisitions or grow organically into new markets, whatever it might be, and then ultimately have a much more cleaner exit? What are all these different avenues? What is the proposition for all these different avenues and what do they mean? What does it mean to be a listed company and how do we get there?
In your mind, what are the practical first steps a founder or CEO can take to get a realistic assessment of their company valuation before getting too excited?
Obviously, having a good advisor that can give you that evaluation advice, but not just this is the number. How does the market arrive at a valuation, or how does the market arrive at a price? And businesses are valued differently depending on the sector that you're in.
From your experience, what non-financial factors do you believe are critical for enhancing a business value for a CEO or a founder to be aware of?
A lot of the things that the market looks at and what we look at when we're pricing companies is the security of their distribution channels. In private companies and smaller private companies, a lot of the reliance is on the owner. How does government regulation impact the ability of a business to generate and grow its earnings?
So in your world, what does success look like for you personally? What would I actually say that would enhance the customer experience journey within PKF and yourself?
I think the most pleasing thing from a success perspective for me is that the clients listened, taken the advice, met with you, engaged with you, and obviously you're working along that journey to support them with one, getting that revenue back on track. Because I think the biggest thing that clients think is, let's just grow revenue. But ultimately, businesses are priced and bidded now in most cases on an earnings number, not on a revenue number. And the biggest challenge we're seeing in the market right now is earnings might be growing, but revenue might be growing, but earnings, for whatever reason, largely driven by margins and productivity and cost of labor, is not growing in line with revenue.
Yeah.
Valuations aren't going up, even though revenue is going up.
Yes, that's
I think that whole sales piece is so important, but it's winning the sales that's earnings accretive.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that kind of leads to our kind of relationship working with you and helping out a few CEOs, founders. Why, based on that experience, why do you think it's essential for founders to seek out a trusted, disciplined team of advisors to help them achieve their goals?
I classify the advisors in two buckets. Those advisors that are going to be inside the company. So what you're doing with actually helping building out sales channels and sales funnels and actually helping them hands on. And those advisors that are external to the company, I like myself and her, helping them achieve an exit price or some sort of exit strategy. I think it's important. Yeah. Business owners need to be conscious of what do they need an advisor for, and what objective or what solution or what problem are they trying to solve.
One of the things is interesting, and you're quite unique that way, which like most kind of big firms like yourself, if they would normally kind of use the consulting opportunity and use it within their ecosystem versus giving the referral to an external consultant or an advisory firm like myself. What's driving you to do work along that basis?
I think your philosophy in terms of play to win, like you're ultimately, you want to put the right team around a client to achieve the objective that the client has set out to achieve. Now, and you and I have obviously both seen it. There's a lot of general practitioners out there that want to do everything. But I think the moment that you can say to yourself as an advisor, I'm not the right person for this job, but I know the right person, I think that's the best thing for the client. Introduce them to the right person. I like our scenario, which just validates why introducing them to someone that knows what they're doing in the right space and is ultimately supporting the client, and we're getting results.
And that kind of leaves us in the end. And I'm kind of personally, your top three guidance principles to CEOs, founders who are at the stage where they've scaled up, they're doing tens of millions of dollars in revenue, and they're lost in the sense that they really have challenges in the business from a financial perspective or from a leadership or an engagement perspective. And then bringing companies, as you said, the partners like consultants, you. But I guess just leaving this podcast with two or three top messages for those founders, CEOs who are looking for help at the moment, who feel that they're lost and quite lonely. What would be your top three for them?
I think the first thing is to think, what is the objective that we're trying to achieve? And it may not be an exit strategy. It may be intergenerational asset that we want to put in the best position to hand on to the next generation. So I think the first thing is, what's the objective? The second thing is, you need to be really mindful of compliance and governance these days. So do I have the right team from a governance perspective, and then also from a compliance perspective? Your tax agents, your tax advisors, your lawyers. I think the third thing is probably, do I have the right advisors around me that are really acting in the interest of what my objective is and not just treating me as largely another client? So I think having that personal relationship with your advisor is important.
And one last one, and I think it's an important one. I just came in my mind. You deal with a lot of companies, and you and I have discussed about advisory boards and my affiliation with the advisory board and the passion for me to set up advisory board versus the governance boards that you see, which are more decision-making, risk-taking governance boards versus advisory. From where you sit within your firm and the ecosystem that you think, what's your view between the two, and how do you see the evolution of the advisory board becoming more and more popular with companies in different sectors and different ranges?
Yeah, sure. I think from an advisory board perspective, the first thing I think is, there's no point having a board for board's sake. There needs to be some sort of purpose in having a board. So from an advisory board perspective, I think it's fantastic because you're creating a group of advisors that have different skill sets that are all working together for whatever that short-term objective is. So I see the advisory board more as working on projects to
Mm.
achieve that ultimate objective. So it might be a project in isolation, then that advisory board resets and moves on to the next project. So that's my view on where advisory boards are really add a lot of value for clients.
All right. Thank you so much, Stefan. Really great to talk to you. Appreciate your time. And look forward to keep on working with you.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Thank you for joining us today on the Play to Win podcast.